started today. Here we go. Today we're getting into what's called inflectional and derivational morphemes. We're going to look at what they are, the characteristics of these inflectional morphemes, how they can attach to words, and in what way they affect the words. As you will see, derivational morphemes typically they affect they affect the word in terms of two main things. Derivational morphemes will either change the meaning of the word they attach to if it's a prefix, or they'll change the part of speech of the words they attach to when they occur at the end of the word. Those are two main things. And then we have inflectional morphemes. They serve more of a grammatical type function. So they'll affect the words grammatically. During our class today, we will talk about the 8 inflectional morphemes in the English language. That's it. There are 8, no more than that. That's all you got to worry about. There's 8 of those. So when we take our test, I'll be asking you to take words and break them into smaller parts, and I'll ask you to identify each of those smaller parts. Is that affix a derivational or inflectional morpheme, and then justify your response. So that's kind of where we're going with all of these things. Okay, having said that, here we go. Okay, let's take a look. Is this where I need to start here? Does this look right? Okay, we're good. We have the definition. Okay, derivational morphemes. They may change the meaning or the lexical category of the words they attach to. Okay, so group A. Let's take a look at these. You see dis, pre, anti. So then we attach them, and then we get dissatisfied, we get preview, we get antisocial. So we get those 3 words. Now, the next question, let's take a look at group B. So group B, we have ITY, we have ION, we have MENT. So we have stable, it changes to stability, radiate changes to radiation, and then merry changes to merriment. So here's my question. I'm thinking about these definitions above. Which group seems to affect the meaning of the words that these morphemes are attaching to?
Group A.
Good. So we're going to take group A and we're going to connect it right there. So in every case, it looks like dis means not, pre means before, anti means against. So these are all prefixes and they seem to affect the meaning of these roots that we see here. So we have dissatisfied, we have preview, we have antisocial. Now, of course, here we have no other choice. Group B, it seems to affect the words in terms of the lexical categories. Okay, so here's my question. We have stable, and it changes to stability. So the word is changing from what part of speech to what part of speech? Can anybody tell me that? For example, what part of speech is stable? What part of speech is stability?
I don't know why, but I find it easier to identify on radiate and radiation, if you'll accept that.
Okay, well, let's deal with that. Radiate, what part of speech is that?
Radiate would be a verb and
Good.
radiation would be a noun.
Good. Nice. So we're doing something here. How about merry? Have a Merry Christmas. And then merriment.
Merry would be an adjective.
Good. So let's put that, we get that one out of the way.
I'm not sure what merriment means.
It's a noun. We don't use it very much. It's a rare, but it's a noun like experiment, merriment, detriment. And then stable is actually an adjective. How do I know that? I'm going to do 2 things. If I put the in front of it and I say the stable, it doesn't seem to work with just those two words. So I don't think that stable is a noun, but how about this? Do you have a stable income to support yourself? So I say stable as it modifies income. So income's a noun. So what's stable?
Stable is an adjective.
That's right. And it's changing to what?
A verb.
No.
No?
Stabilize is a verb.
Oh, my bad.
Stability. What is that? Do you have job stability?
Is that an adverb?
No, this is going to be a noun. These are all nouns on the one side. So the ity, the tion, and the ment, these are also derivational morphemes because they change the lexical category of the words they attach to. What we've observed here is these words are changing from adjective to nouns or from verbs to nouns. That's exactly what's going on there. And that's how group A is different from the words in group B. They're both derivational morphemes. They just do different things to the words they're attaching to. That's what you want to remember there. Okay, any questions on that before I move on? This is so easy. The whiteboard at Cal State, I got to go and erase everything. This is such an easy deal. Okay. On the other hand, right? Let's talk about inflectional morphemes for a minute. We're going to get into more detail with both of them in just a minute, but let's cover them in a basic sense. Inflectional morphemes. It says morphemes that serve purely a grammatical function, never creating a new word, but only a different form of the same word. So notice how inflectional morphemes are different. They don't change the lexical category of the word. They do not change the meaning of the word. They add some type of grammatical function to the word. That's what they're doing. So here's my question here. Let's look at group A and then group B and kind of go from there. Okay, give me a quick second here. Let me space these out here. I want to make sure I have enough space to. Actually, this goes up here. Sorry. Put these down here. Okay, here we go. So let's take a look at group A. We have ED, for example, we have walk, and then we have walked here. Then we have the ED here, we have walk, and we have walked again. So it says, how is the ED inflectional morpheme in group A different from that in group B? And I don't know if this will help you, but let me give you a hint here. This might be it seems like a very easy question, but it's not always, there's nothing in linguistics that's easy really. I mean, it's if you teach ESL, it's easy, but you guys don't have that background yet, right? Or you might be working with children. You might have some non-native speakers in there in your elementary school classes. Let me do something here. So if I take some words here, right, I could say here break, and then I can say broke, and I can say broken, and then I can say breaking. So I want you to kind of look at these, and this might help you with what I'm trying to show you here. We even have another one, which is called to break. So let's say that a verb, you can look at maybe 5 forms of a verb here. You have to break is called the infinitive. Break is the base form of the verb. Broke is the simple past form of the verb. Broken, usually you'll have some type of what we call auxiliary verb in front of it, like have broken. And then you have breaking, which is you might have are or was. So let me just, you might want to write this down. So you got to break is an infinitive. Break is the base form of the verb. Broke is a simple past. Broken is the past participle. And then breaking is the present participle. So these two, you might not know what I'm talking about, but let me write them down here as you can see. You have the past participle, and you also have what's called the present participle. I'm not going to say it twice there, right? So then now that you know some of the language, how is group B walked different from walked in group A? And just use the language I just showed you here.
Group B uses past participle.
And
Wow.
group A uses a
Group A,
simple
present.
past form of the verb.
Yeah.
That's it. So even though you have the ED in both cases, it doesn't have the same grammatical function. So the second one, it's used after the helping verb, but the first ED is used within the verb itself. So group A, this is called the simple past inflectional ending. Group B is called the past participle inflection ending. What is the past participle? It's the fourth form of the verb that you see here. Some verbs are really crazy. How about cut? To cut, 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 cutting. So cut doesn't change. It just stays the same. So we have a lot of irregular verbs in our language. So that's kind of what that is. Okay, let me keep going here. Okay, so we have that. So we now can identify there's only 8 inflectional morphemes in the English language. I just identified 2. The simple past inflectional ending, the past participle inflectional ending. We know the past participle, we can identify it because it occurs in a verb string. It's the last verb in a verb string. It occurs after have, and then you get have walked. He has broken the chair. Broken is the past participle. Walk can be the past participle. Okay, let's keep going here. Now let's take a look at these. This one I think won't be that hard. Can somebody tell me what the purpose of the S is in the word cars? 2 cars were stolen. What purpose is that S?
More than one to pluralize it?
There you go. So are you shocked if I call this the plural S inflectional ending?
No.
No.
Yeah, probably not, right? You're going to be shocked with the second one, believe me. This one's going to blow your brain, but this one, there's nothing weird about that, right? Plural S inflectional ending. Now, the second one, can anybody tell me the function of the S in group D? She walks to school daily. Notice how it is not plural. The subject is she. That's singular. This has nothing to do with plural at all, but Michael has an S on it. It doesn't, believe me, it doesn't mean plural here. But what is it? What does it do? Can somebody tell me that?
Verb telling us what she's doing?
Okay, so, and is it the past or the present here? Walks.
Present?
Good. Now, is it first, second, or third person present?
First?
No, first
Yeah.
will be I. Second is
Oh,
you. Third
Third.
person is he or she or it, right?
Would it sound like the walk sounds like if it's she is walking in a way?
Well, we use sometimes, this is called the simple present, right? We're using the simple present to talk about a habitual activity because we included that word. So she walks to school, she runs before class or whatever. We can use a simple present verb to talk about an ongoing habit, something that recurs on a day-to-day basis. I read books before I work in the morning or something. Now, this one, believe it or not, this one may shock you, but when you think about how I describe it, it makes sense. It's the third person present singular. Are we done already? I'm still going. Third person present singular inflection or inflectional S. That's exactly what that is. If you say third person present singular S, that exactly describes that. That's the one I told you. It's logical how I'm describing it, but it's just not something that's going to roll off the tip of your tongue. But I want you to be aware of what it is, though. It's important. I might put this on the test. So when you have a verb and you have S on the end of it, is the third person present singular inflection S. It's TPPS. I don't know if that helps you. TPs. How about that? TPs. TPPS. Third person present singular inflectional S. Now, the last one's quite easy. You can identify this in one word. What is it? The car's engine needs to be replaced. What is it in Spanish? El motor del carro needs to be replaced. But the car's engine, what is that S doing there?
It belongs to that car.
Good.
Position.
Yeah, we have that. So it's the possessive S ending. So what is the inflectional function of the S in group C? It's the plural S. What is the inflectional function of the S in group D? Hijo de la. It's a third person present singular inflection S is what it is. And in group E, we have to say it's the possessive. So these are three S's, right? And three different inflectional functions. Now, this particular S that you see here in group D, it can take 25 to 30 years for a non-native speaker to use this S accurately 85% of the time in spoken language. So it's just not readily acquired, period. The good news is, if you think about why people don't use it, and there's even dialects that don't use it, American dialects, right? You have I walk, you walk, and then the dialects of American English, they just say I walk, you walk, he, she, it walk, they walk, we walk. They just get rid of the S and keep all the verbs the same for consistency purposes. So a lot of dialects, we're talking about 50 million speakers or more here. A lot of dialects don't use the third person S, and a lot of non-native speakers do not use the third person S. So it's not used everywhere. A lot of dialects and non-native speakers have omitted it from the language. FYI. Okay, let's keep going. We got that one. Wanted to talk about that. Let's look at just some basic, a few more definitions. We have stem, root, and base, right? That's just a way of talking about what's called the content morpheme in a given word, the free morpheme there. Okay, so let's take a look at the following words here. So what would be the root in the word accommodation? Does anybody know? Can somebody tell me that one? We're just looking for what's called the stem, the root, or the base.
Accommodate.
That's it. Good. So then when I look at the word, that's how I look at it. I see accommodate, and then I see accommodation. Accommodate is a verb. Accommodation is a noun. How about capable or capability?
Is it capable?
Yeah. I just told you by mistake.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I look at this in two parts. Capable, you're a capable person, right? Capable is an adjective. Capability is a noun. Dehumanize. What's the root there?
Human.
That's it, right? So we can break that one up. And then when we look at this, you have to think of three things. You see human, humanize, and dehumanize. Human is a verb. Human is a noun. Humanize is a verb. And dehumanize is a verb. How about this one? This is a tough one. Delineation.
Wouldn't that be linear?
I'm going to go even a step further and say line. I'm going to say line, lineate, delineate, delineation. That's how I would look at that one. How about hallucination? Two parts.
Hallucinate.
Good. So we have that, and then you have, so then you can say hallucinate is a verb, and then hallucination is a noun. Irregularity.
Regular.
Good. So we have that. We can break that one into its. So then you have regular. And at this point, you could say regular, irregular, or you can say regular, regularity, then irregularity. So regular, I look at that as an adjective. Did you have a regular, non-eventful day today or something? So you have, no, I had an irregular day. That would be also an adjective, but the meaning changes. So if you say regular, adjective, regularity, noun, irregularity, also noun. How about unmanageable? I didn't quite hear it. Say again.
Manage.
Good. So then we'll put that one like that. We got it nailed down right there. So then you have manage, which is a verb. I want to say unmanaged, but I don't think you use that as a verb. So we have manage, which is a verb. We have manageable, which is an adjective, and unmanageable, which is an adjective. Okay. Paradigmatically, what would be the root there?
Paradigm.
Good. So it kind of starts with paradigm, which is a noun, maybe paradigmatic, which is an adjective, and then paradigmatically, which is an adverb. How about recombine?
Combine.
Good. So that's it. So the first step is I wanted to just show you when I talk about stem, root, or base, that's when you look at a word, that's the first step. If it does have multiple affixes in it, what is the actual root? And try to break the word into that root and then see what's happening after that. Are there prefixes? Are there suffixes? Are they adding to the word? What are they doing to that word? Are they changing the meaning? Are they changing the part of speech? Are they adding some type of grammatical information to the word? That's what we're thinking about. Okay, let's continue onward. Adelante, as they say. Here we go. Allomorph. What an allomorph is to a morpheme. I mean, you just use the clue. Look at the definition here. You will need to know this, but you can see that part of this word is morph, which means morpheme, and the other is allos. You have allophones, you have allomorphs. So what an allophone is to a phoneme, an allomorph is to a morpheme. Thus, we say non-distinctive realization of a particular morpheme that have the same function and are phonetically similar. I forgot to put my S in there. I speak like my international students. I've been teaching ESL so long. I speak almost with an ESL accent. I might say I bought book yesterday. I don't even put the article in there half the time anymore because none of my international students do. So it's kind of like a psychiatrist that has the transfer of the patient to the psychiatrist, and that's really terrible, which makes psychiatrists have high suicide rates. But in my case, it's not lethal. They transfer some of their habits, linguistic habits, to me because I hear them all day long. Okay, what do we have? Let's keep going here. So it says, here is an example of an allomorph. Lo and behold, it says, pay particular attention to how the ED inflectional ending is pronounced. Transcribe each word. Can somebody tell me? I'm concerned about how the ED is pronounced in each word. So let's start with grabbed. So the ED is pronounced as what?
It's pronounced as a D.
Good. We got that one. How about walked? The ED is pronounced as a
T.
How about planted? The ED is pronounced as
As an ED, it's a id.
Good. So we might transcribe it like this, right? So I'm going to say that these three things, right? These are allomorphs of what's called the inflectional past tense ending. So what I'm saying is it doesn't matter if I pronounce the ed as a d, if I pronounce it as a t, if I pronounce it as an id, it is still the inflectional ending here. We have not changed the basic identity of this inflectional morpheme. And that's what's called an allomorph. So allomorphs, they cause trouble. They cause trouble. Children, they might say grab it. They might say walk it. They might not notice, say, the D or just the T. They get confused when they see this one and they overgeneralize and they apply the rule after the T and they apply it to other words where it doesn't apply. And then non-native speakers have a lot of trouble with allomorphs also. So allomorphs, they're very troublesome. It's hard for non-native speakers to get control of them. Now, what phonology does, which is helpful, phonology answers a question, well, why is the ED pronounced as a D? Or why is the ED pronounced as a T? Or why is it have an additional syllable? So phonology would answer that and it would say, well, the D comes after what's called a voice consonant, or the T comes after a voiceless consonant. And then it says, well, the id is going to come after any word that ends in a T or D because we cannot apply the above two rules. So then we create the additional syllable so we can mark it as either the past tense or the past participle inflectional ending. We do it so our listeners can hear what we're saying. They can get the right time frame. So that's one example. Okay, let's take a look at another example. And I've answered all of these questions here. So it says, the S ending here. Now, number one, can somebody tell me what is the grammatical function of the S in pencils, books, and pieces? What is the purpose of that? The grammatical function. What is it doing when the S attaches to these words?
It's a plural S.
Good. So let's put this over here. The plural S inflectional ending, right? That's what this is. Now, in pencils, how is the S pronounced?
As a Z.
Books, books, how is the S pronounced?
A KS.
Books. You said KS, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So it's pronounced as an S. And then how about pieces? Is pieces.
Yes.
And we have that right there, right? Okay, so now it's the same thing. So we're saying that the plural S ending, right? When it's pronounced as a Z, as an S, as an is, these are considered allomorphs of the same plural S ending. Even though the pronunciation changes and the S is pronounced as a Z, or the S is pronounced as an S, or it's pronounced with an additional syllable, it is still the plural S ending. So then these two examples illustrate the definition of allomorphs. An allomorph is a non-distinctive realization of a morpheme. And in these cases, inflectional morpheme. Okay, any questions on that before we move on? I'm almost certain on the test, I'll give you some examples. It'll say these examples illustrate, right? It'll say a allophone. Half of you will pick that. You're in the twilight zone. Some of you will get it right. You'll say allomorphs. I might have even C. I'll say something like phonemes or phonics, or, you know, there will be one distractor is just way out there. It has nothing to do with anything. But just make sure if I show you some non-distinctive realizations of an inflectional ending, you know, morpheme, right? And you have different pronunciations of that ending, but still the grammatical purpose is the same. Like in this case, to show the plural S, you want to pick allomorph. It is an allomorph. That's what that is. There we go. We got that out of the way. That's good. That's a bit, some of these things are pretty tedious, pretty abstract. But what I'm telling you is Elmores cause big trouble for children learning the language and for adults learning English later on in life. They're troublesome. And you at least need to be aware of what they are and why they cause confusion. So somebody looks at they say book is, they're thinking of pieces. They might put that additional syllable on the end. I had one of my students earlier. I was doing some pronunciation grading with my ESL students, and they saw this word, and guess what? They said ores. They didn't say ores, as in metals and ores. They said ores. So they put that additional syllable at the end because they do know that sometimes when the S is on the end, you do an additional syllable. But this student hasn't figured out the phonological rules yet. They're not cemented into the brain yet. So it's kind of a guess. When she sees a word that ends in S, she may make an additional syllable or she might not. So she's still trying to figure this stuff out. And as she goes through these stages of adult language acquisition, eventually she will have these things figured out with, 85, 90% proficiency. And that's good enough in my book, believe me. Nobody needs to be perfect, right? My job is to help these students get a good enough grip on academic English so they can function in university settings. Now, does that mean after they're done with my class and they get in one of your classes, their pronunciation is going to be perfect? Of course not. But they should be able to communicate, right? Maybe even in some cases in a fragmented sense, but they can understand what they're hearing. They can read proficiently. They can write with a degree of organization and so on. We try to help them there. Okay, let me keep going. We don't need to worry about the parts of speech now. We can move on and get into right here. Okay, so let me just do a quick review of the parts of speech here. I got to take this. I got this stupid. I put this on. It's 57 degrees for a high in the high desert today. I'm like, crap. But then I started talking to you guys and I got overheated. Get this thing out of here. Okay, here we go. Let me get back to what we're doing. And now I'm cold, of course. Okay, so let me just recap. So we talked about content words, right? We can break content words into 4 categories: adjectives, nouns, adverbs, and verbs, right? These words carry the meaning and they carry a lot of stress in the spoken language. Then we moved over and we talked about function words. Function words have more of a grammatical purpose. And examples of those are determiners, prepositions, and auxiliary verbs. So we have that. Okay, let's move on. Inflectional morphemes. Let's talk about the characteristics of inflectional morphemes. And this class, it could be about an hour. I apologize. There's a lot of things I need to get done here. So inflectional morphemes do not change the meaning or part of speech. That's one thing I want you guys to think about. So if you look at the word big, you look at bigger, you look at biggest, it's still an adjective in all cases. And the meaning is still there. It's still big. But bigger is bigger than big. And biggest is bigger than bigger. It's still big. Number 2, inflectional morphemes are required by syntax. It means that inflectional morphemes, they seem to be affected not by just what happens with the word, but what happens outside of the word, right? In other parts of the sentence. So they indicate syntactic or semantic relations between different words in a sentence. So look at this. Susan walks to school, right? Notice if I said we, I would actually get rid of this S. What if I said yesterday? Yesterday, Susan, I would change it. I would say yesterday, Susan walked to school. Today, Susan walks to school. We walk to school. The students walk to school. So inflectional morphemes, they're affected by what happens outside of the word and other parts of the sentence. So it says in this case, S marks the third person singular present form of the verb, making it agree with the third person singular subject, Susan. Number 3, inflectional morphemes are very productive. It means you can take an inflectional morpheme and you can attach it to many words. For example, the ed. What about cut, Michael? You can't say cut it, but with regular verbs, right? You can put ed on the ends of those verbs. So the ed can occur on literally thousands and thousands of verbs. The ing, you can put the ing at the end of many verbs, right? Of all verbs, pretty much, and it works. So derivational morphemes, they are highly productive. It said the plural s occurs with almost all nouns. You know exceptions: cactus, cacti, bacterium, bacteria, and on criterion, criteria, and all that nonsense. We have a lot of irregular stem changing nouns and verbs, and that stuff throws monkey wrenches into everybody's brains trying to learn the language. But I'm just saying, for the most part, right? With most things. Okay, number 4, they occur at the margin of a word after any derivational morpheme. This is a clue. So if you have an inflectional morpheme, it will not be as a prefix. It will not occur before another affix at the end of a word. So if you look at the word rationalizing, right, the very last part of that is the ing. That's the inflectional morpheme. So if you look at the word, you have ration, noun, rational, adjective, rationalize, which is a verb, and then finally rationalizing, which is also a verb. So it occurs at the end after all other affixes. And then here's a good one. Inflectional morphemes are only suffixes in English. And this is what we call 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the 5 characteristics of inflectional morphemes in the English language. Let's move ahead. Let's keep going. Here's the next part. And what you see here, before you guys have a heart attack, there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 inflectional morphemes in the English language, right? If that gives you a heart attack, it shouldn't, right? How about learning Spanish, which probably has 50? I have no idea how many it has. I haven't counted, but it has a lot, right? Spanish is highly inflectional language. English, not so much. Now, we're going to identify all of them right now, but I'm going to try to give you a mnemonic clue. This may help some of you, it may not, but I'm going to give you a little clue to help you remember these 8 things. You need to know what they are. What I would tell you, Nicole, Paulina, Alexandria, Jose, everybody in the class, when you take the next test, the first thing I would do is, on a blank sheet of paper, when you start the test, you should write all 8 of these inflectional morphemes. Write them down. So here's a trick. There's 3 S endings. You want to know that. There are 3. There are 2, what we call ED endings. Then there is the ing ending, and then I group these together, the ER and the EST. This is how I remember it. So 3 + 2, 5, 6, 7, 8. So at least you have to identify 3 S endings. We talked about them a minute ago. We have 2 ED endings, and then we have the ing, and then we have the ER and the EST. That gives you the 8. These are the 8 that you need to know, and we're going to identify what they are right now. So let's go back to where we are here. Is this right? Am I getting it right here? Is this okay? Here we go. Okay, let's start with so the first one, I already did it. So we have he waits at the store. We're saying wait plus S. It's the third person present singular inflection S ending. That's what that is. So let's go to the next one. So we're looking at waited, right? So we have wait. Then we have the ED, and what is the purpose? Can somebody tell me? He waited at the store.
third person, the present singular.
No. I said weighted, ED. It said nothing to do with present. Say
Past.
again. Yes, so we're going to say the past tense. Okay, let's try another one. Now let's go to he is waiting, right? So we'll say wait. And then we're saying ing. So what is the purpose of the ing? And at this point, don't bring present or past into this thing because I could have said he was waiting, he will be waiting, he is waiting, he has been waiting. So don't worry about saying anything about the present or the past when it comes to waiting. Just look at the ing and just think about what that's doing. Any comments on this one? Ing, what is that? What is the grammatical function of the ing?
I think it's something that's in progress or in the
Good.
process.
Yes. And I'm going to take your word progress and guess what? The progressive function, the progressive or continuous inflectional ending. That's what it is. I know my spelling's terrible. Tell me something I don't know. So you got progressive continuous, right? Okay, so let's keep going. Now this is going to confuse you, but you know, we already said weighted is the past tense, and we cannot say that again. So we have to look at weighted here as it occurs with has. It occurs in a verb string. So you have to look at it differently. So wait plus ed. And what is the purpose of weighted within the verb string has waited? It is if I said this, does this give you a clue? PP?
The past participle.
Good. Yes, right there. Okay, so let's keep going. So far, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've identified 4 of them, and the rest of them get easier. I think they get a lot easier. So we're saying Mary, and then the S. So Mary's bike is stolen. So la bicicleta de Maria. So what is the S doing here?
It's the possessive S.
Good. And I never spell possessor right half the time. Try spelling words like committee. It drives you nuts. COMMITTEE. What's up with all those double consonants? What a disaster to have all those things. English has been impacted by so many different languages. It messes up all the phonetics of the language. Okay, so we have that one. Let's keep going. Okay, so we have faster. So we have fast. We have ER. And then what is the grammatical purpose of ER? What are we doing? Notice we're talking about not two people, talking about 2 bikes. Mary's bike is faster than Jack's bike, right? That's why I put the possessive S after Jack. So we are comparing 2 bikes, right? So does this surprise you? Comparative inflectional ending? That's what it is. It's the comparative because you use the ER to compare 2 things. That's what it is. Okay, let's go with fast and then EST. So what's the purpose of the EST? We got to take comparative and then move it 1 step higher than that. And what is the next step after comparative? We know it's going to be the same ending, but what is the beginning of it?
The superlative.
Good. Yes. Thank you. So notice when I say Naoko has the fastest bike, that implies we're looking at her bike in relation to 3 or more bicycles. So Naoko has the fastest bike of all the bikes, or Naoko has a faster bike than, no, yeah, Naoko has a faster bike than Hiroshima or Tamahiro or something. I'm using some names from my Japanese students. Okay, let's keep going. So we have that one done. We got one more. So we have book. We have the S. This is a really easy one. We have Afag purchased 3 books. What's the purpose of the S here?
It's the plural S.
Good. Right there. So then we see all of them. We now have 8. We have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's it. Game over. That's all you need to know. You need to make sure you know all 8. You need to know what these things are. Now, does that mnemonic thing make more sense to you, what I said? You remember I said 3 S's, 2 EDs, the ING, the ER, and the EST. I don't know if that will help you, but that's how I remember them personally. And remember that if a word is affected by an affix, right? If you put one of these inflectional morphemes on the end of a word, it is going to change the grammatical function of that word. And I'm expecting that you can tell me what that grammatical function is. So if you see ing on the end of the word, you're going to say the progressive inflectional ending. That's perfect. If you see the ed at the end of the word, you're going to tell me that is either a past participle or a simple past inflectional ending. If you say that, you get all the points. Now, you can write 100 words and get nothing if you don't include those specific things in your answer, right? If you see the ing, I just want you to say, this is the progressive or continuous inflectional ending. That's perfect. That's fine. If you see the S, you have 3 different choices there, right? It's the plural S inflectional ending, it's a possessive S inflectional ending, or it's the third person present singular inflection ending. That's what it is. And then for the hard part, the one's hard to remember sometimes for some people, the ER and the EST, either it's the comparative or the superlative inflectional endings there. That's my expectation, as you will know when those affixes are attaching to a word, you can explain what grammatical information they're adding to that word. That is what I'm trying to get you guys to think about. Okay, any questions before I move on? Okay, here we go. Keep going. So now we're getting into derivational morphemes, right? And we're now going to talk about some of the basic characteristics of derivational morphemes. I said it, I'm saying it again. They may change the meaning or the lexical category of the words that they attach to. That is one big thing. So let's talk about the lexical category first, right? And I want you guys to tell me what the derivational process is in terms of parts of speech. So I did the first one for you already. So fail, failure, marry, marriage, arrive, arrival. So we're saying here that these words are changing from verbs to nouns. That would be what's called the derivational process here. And as it relates to lexical categories. So let's look at another one, see if we can describe this one. Fortune, fortunate, would, wooden, power, powerful. So what's the derivational process going on here?
Noun to adjective.
Good. Yes, Simon. Exactly. Let's keep going. That's all you got to tell me. If you looked at these, if you saw fortune, fortunate, or something, you would say derivational, changing from nouns to adjectives. Don't even need to write the full word out. Just make sure you understand what you're trying to tell me. Okay, here's another one. Help, helpless. Create, creative. Continue, continual. ¿Qué está pasando aquí? What's going on here?
Verb to adjective.
Exactly. Thank you. Let's keep going. Beauty, beautify. Terror, terrorize. Friend, befriend.
Would it be noun to verb?
Good. Now, if you're not sure how she's doing this, you're probably doing what I do. Are you putting things into sentences? For example, the beauty of the river, or I felt the terror in my mind when I put things into my mind. I think about syntactically where they are and how they work. And then I see beautify. I'm going to beautify my room by putting some flowers by the windowsill. So you have to kind of, everything we talked about with parts of speech, you have to, can you say the and then beauty? The beauty, the terror, the friend. Yes, you can. So because you can put determiners in front of those words, those are nouns. With beautify, terrorize, and befriend, you can put ed at the end of those words. Beautified, terrorized, befriended. And that tells me those words are verbs. So however it works for you, you have to create some mental kind of tests in your mind that can help you identify what these lexical or parts of speech are of the words we're looking at. Okay, here's another one. So we have warm. It's a warm day. Sincere apology. Happy vacation. Warmth. Sincerity. Happiness. So what's the process here? These words are changing from to what?
I almost want to say adjective to noun.
And you are saying it exactly. You notice how I said warm, a warm day, sincere apology, happy vacation. I'm putting these words in front of nouns. They're describing those nouns. That's exactly what adjectives do. They're descriptor words. And then we have warmth. These are all nouns. Warmth, sincerity, and happiness. Okay, let's keep going. And this is just illustrating, and I'm over illustrating, I admit, but sometimes I want to hit the point and really get it into your brain. That's what I'm doing here. You got modern, modernize, simple, simplify, active, activate. So what's the derivational process here?
Noun to verb.
Good. No.
Adjective to verb.
Yes. Yeah, because you might say modern skyscraper, simple plan, or active lifestyle. So I can put modern, simple, and active in front of nouns. I can't just say the modern. It doesn't work like that. The simple. Nope. The active. So if I put a noun marker in front of those words, it doesn't work. I need a word after that to complete what's called the noun phrase. And then we have modernize. All of these simplify. These are all verbs. Okay, did I get through it all? Yes, I did. So all of this is simply to illustrate one thing. I only want to illustrate one thing through those examples. I'm just illustrating that derivational morphemes can change the lexical category of the words they attach to. So what are some examples of how that happens? They can change them from verbs to nouns. They can change them from nouns to adjectives, verbs to adjectives, adjectives to nouns, adjectives to verbs. These are different kinds of things that can happen when derivational morphemes attach to words. Okay, now meaning. This is the second part of my definition, right? That's all I'm doing. I'm just illustrating what I just said in the beginning. So let's see how derivational morphemes affect the meaning of the word. Let's see if we can identify how it affects the meaning. That's what I want to do right now. And then hopefully you can remember this. This is a big part of the test. I'm not going to kid with you here. We're talking about sometimes 30 to 40 points per word. But instead of doing the IPA and breaking the word into individual sounds, you're breaking the word into units, into roots and affixes. And you're identifying what those affixes are doing. Are they derivational? Are they inflectional in nature? And you're justifying your response either way. That's kind of what I'm trying to prepare you to be able to do. Okay, so here's the meaning here. This one's really easy, right? We have rewrite, reschedule, reestablish. So we're saying changes to again. So we'll say no more on that, right? We don't need to get too bogged down with this stuff. So what's the meaning of pre? Preview, pre-writing, preclude.
Before.
Before.
Good. Changes to before. There we go. What's the meaning of anti? The anti-social club. You might have seen that shirt. Anti. What does that mean?
Against.
Good. Perfect. How about auto? Autobiography, automobile, automation.
Self.
Perfect. Divide. Yeah, I was thinking, don't let the dis fool you, because I think a dis is negative, right? But then when I see it here, I'm like, maybe not. So divide, dissect, disassemble. So what does die mean? What does it do? To what?
Separate.
Maybe there. That's good. To separate, to take apart, something like that. X. I know you're thinking ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend. I'm not looking at that. Extract, extrinsic, exoskeleton. What is that?
Outside of. Or
Good.
out.
Good. Perfect. Yeah. So we'll say outside of something. You know, we have skeletons, right? But insects like beetles, they have an exoskeleton. So it's on the outside of the body. Interstate, interrelationship. I don't know why I put this twice. Don't even ask me. But what does like Interstate 15, what does that mean? And how is it different from a highway? I'm thinking maybe between, like you have Interstate 15, right? It starts, or depending on how you want to look at it, it goes north, right? Odd number freeways go north and south, even number go east and west, right? So we know that Interstate 15, it begins or ends in San Diego area, depending how you want to look at it, goes all the way through California, into Nevada, through Utah, and all the way into Idaho. So it goes between one state to the next. So there's a difference between the internet and the intranet. Okay, how about this one? Binary, bipolar, bisexual.
Two.
Good. We'll say two or both. Is there anything else here? How about this one? Circumvent, circumference, circumscribe. What are we talking about?
Around.
Good. So we have our meanings there. So that's it. I wanted to illustrate those things. There's a couple more things I need to look at today, but I just illustrated through the examples that derivational morphemes, they can affect the part of speech of the words they attach to. We just saw several derivational processes of how the words are changing in the part of speech from one kind of word to another kind of word. And then of course, we see examples of how derivational morphemes can affect the meaning. So we see those things. Okay, let's keep going. Syntax does not require the presence of derivational morphemes. They indicate semantic relations within a word, but no syntactic relations outside of the word. So and unhappy relates to un, which means not, to kind, but has no connection outside of the word. So how do I know that? I mean, if you look at what I wrote here, I said they are unhappy people. Notice how unhappy stays the same. He is, and unhappy still stays the same. So it isn't affected. I could even say was. I can say he was an unhappy person, but this particular word will not change. So derivational morphemes are not affected by things that happen outside of the word, only with the word itself. Then the last point I will make today is this. This is where I'm going to end. This is where I ended every section. Derivation morphemes are usually not very productive. They're generally very selective about what they'll combine with. And that creates a very big problem for language learners. For example, if you can take the ABLE and simply put it at the end of every verb, it would be easy to acquire. However, we can say wash, washable. We can say use, usable. We can say read, readable. We can say love, lovable. But for some reason, we can't really say go, goable, or cry, cryable, or sittable, or dieable. Those don't seem to work very well. So then the question is, well, what kinds of verbs take ABLE, and then which kinds of verbs cannot take ABLE? This is a tough one. Let me give you an example here. If I said, I wash my clothes, I'm trying to figure out what wash is and how it's different from go. I go to the movies on the weekends. Now, this is honestly a really difficult question. If anybody could get this one, I would be impressed. Can anybody tell me the difference between these two verbs here? Notice how wash takes a direct object, but go does not. And if you think about go, cry, sit, and die, I cried at the movies. I sit in my living room with my family sometimes, or the soldier died in the battle. So it looks like go, cry, sit, and die, they do not take direct objects. They take preposition. Does anybody know what kinds of verbs those are? You ever heard that? You might have, if you've used a dictionary, it'll sometimes say in the dictionary, it'll say by the verb, it'll put T or it'll put I. Does anybody know what that means? This is important for if you have an obscure word and you're not quite sure how to use it, this tells you how to use it. So I'm getting nothing but crickets on that. Okay, so I'll explain it just briefly. So wash, use, read, and love, these words take direct objects. We call these transitive verbs. Transitive verbs are verbs which take direct objects. But verbs that do not take direct objects, that take prepositions, these are referred to as intransitive verbs. So what am I saying here? I'm saying that the ABLE ending, it likes transitive verbs, but it does not like intransitive verbs. And that illustrates the point that I'm trying to say here, that derivational morphemes are usually not very selective. And that makes them very troublesome for language learners, either children or adults. And you'll see people, they'll put an ending on a word that doesn't really fit, right? If somebody says she is a quick runner, she runs quickly, then one of my non-native speakers will say, she is a fast runner, she runs fastly. And I'm saying, no. Then they're going to say, why? I'm going to say, well, fast is both an adjective and an adverb. It does not take the ly, right? So then I have to show them, here's a list of adverbs that are both adjectives and adverbs and do not take the ly. They want to know what that list is, right? So that would be something that I would share with those students. I think that's it for today.